Everyone, welcome to another edition of the Giles and Goalie Podcast Offseason Mailbag. We're going to get right at it here this week, get some questions right off the hop. The first question is a pretty good one here from DFC. Is Bruce Boudreau on the hot seat? Yeah, plain and simple. Bruce is on the hot seat going into this next season, 2018-19. It is the third year of the fourth year on his contract that he signed a few years ago. New general manager Paul Fenton kind of being told you got to stick with Bruce Boudreau this year. Usually when you see a general manager change, you get a coaching change too. That's not the case this year. So pretty much barring a very deep postseason run for Minnesota this next year, I got to imagine that somebody different might be on the bench for Minnesota in 2019-20, and even if the Wild get off to a bad start this year, that might be it for Bruce Boudreau as well. So it stinks. I don't like that. I think Boudreau is one of the better coaches in the league, and I think as we saw this last year, he's pretty good at guiding the Wild through the regular season, even with the roster that they have, and they didn't swoon this last year. So that's a credit to Bruce, and so. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel going into the year. Next question from Alec. With all this trade talk, what are the chances Wild screw it up? Well, yeah, there's a pretty good chance that the Wild could screw this up. It's not easy to make a trade in the NHL, and I guess the one thing Paul Fenton has going for him is a lot of other general managers in the league are not that smart. People trade Adam Larson for Taylor Hall. People trade PK Subban for Shea Weber. It's interesting out there. That's what I'll say. So there's always a chance he could screw it up, but hopefully Paul Fenton is smarter than some of his peers and can swing that correct move here this summer. So next question from Bobby Krenicki. Who do you think the Wild will trade for, and who or what are they looking for? And then the other question in there is, do you think Eric Staal can have another 40-goal season, or was that a fluke? First question is, I got to imagine the Wild are really trying to find some kind of scoring winger. That's definitely got to be a priority for them. Somebody maybe can kind of complement Jason Zucker and a healthy Zach Parise on the wings and really give them some good depth. Maybe even another center. Somebody who could possibly be a second line center and bump Koivu down to third line. But as for who that is, I sincerely hope it's not Phil Kessel. As much as I love Phil Kessel, it just doesn't seem like that would be a good fit here in Minnesota, as the Wild don't have the quality type centers in Malkin and Crosby that Pittsburgh has, feeding Kessel the puck. So I would try to stay away from Phil Kessel, who is over the age of 30 now. So as for the Eric Staal question, I can't see him scoring 40 goals again. I think 30 goals in a healthy season is very attainable for him, considering how great he looked this last year. But asking him to score 40 goals again next year is a really big task. And as we saw in the playoffs, it just takes somebody to shut him down pretty good, and you got to find some more depth maybe to spring him higher up towards 40 again, but I just don't see it, especially when he's going to be 34 years old, and that's even if he'll be here next year. Like I said, it'll take a good offer for the Wild to trade Eric Staal. So that's where we're going with that. From friend of the show, Joe Booley, he asks, are the trade for Draisaitl talks now at the overcooked stage? Yes, I cannot see the Wild trading for Leon Draisaitl. $8 million cap hit just seems impossible to do, and just to make the salary work, the Wild will have to give up a couple of meaningful players off their roster, and I just don't see it. And is Leon Draisaitl going to be that good away from, Connor McDavid and whatnot? So I just don't see it. Let somebody else make a fool's move with Edmonton, but also, I don't see it. Sorry. Is there any player you'd like in the NHL draft? Well, truth be told, I haven't done a whole lot of research in the NHL draft. Hopefully going to do that here in the next few days, kind of ramp up for the draft coverage next week. So look for that on Zone Coverage, but hopefully the Wild can pick somebody with some upside. They have a first round pick this year, so that's a start. But getting an offensive forward with some scoring upside can be somebody they grab in the number 24 pick. So that's hopefully, but like I said, when you're picking kind of that low in the first round, you're not really going positionally. You're just going best player available, and it sounds like there's going to be a good run on at least centers early on in this draft. So good chance probably the Wild will end up taking a defenseman with that number 1 pick. So Luke Richens, who would you like the Wild to draft again? Just hit on that. I mean, just best player available at this point, and maybe with the plethora of third round picks the Wild have, they can trade up into the second round and grab a decent player and start rebuilding the prospect pipeline that I kind of wrote about the other day is not looking too good. So, and then last question from Joe Booley. Prostate exam necessary or just kinky? Well, Joe, I'm not going to answer that because as somebody who is dating a nurse, that is a tricky question. So if you don't get that reference, go back to the Giles and Goalie Podcast episode where it's titled Nurses Week, and you can listen to that for the fun background on prostate exams. So that is going to do it for the mailbag this week. Thank you to everyone for sending in questions. We will do this again next week. Hopefully there's a little bit more news to kind of go over, but if you have not yet, check out the 2 latest Giles and Goalie podcasts we recorded with Derek Peterson and Josh and Luke, known as Evolving Wild on Twitter. The show ran so long we had to cut it into 2, so episode 156 and episode 157 are that show essentially. So we cut it into 2. We had to cover a lot of ground. Talked about what's good and what's bad going into the Wild offseason, who we would like to see traded, who we would like for the Wild to trade for, analytics in the NHL draft, and then players we'd love to win the Stanley Cup. That was certainly a fun discussion. So do check that out. Find it on iTunes, SoundCloud, all the wonderful platforms you can listen to podcasts on. So Ben and I will be recording again on Sunday, and we will chat with you again next week. Later.